You might have been led to believe we're living in a new golden age of video game adaptations, what with recent high-quality hits like your Fallouts and your Lasts of Us.
Joel, what happened?
I saved her.
Pedro don't miss. But today we're here to remind you of the dark past, and in some cases the dark present, of terrible movies based on your favourite games, in a list with more bombs than hard mode on Microsoft Minesweeper. Please enjoy, if that's the right word, pretty sure it isn't, this top 10 terrible video game movies ranked from worst to, ultra worst?
So what? Are we like Guardians of the Galaxy now?
On our 6!
Yeah, bros.
After reasonable success with the Resident Evil series of movies, writer-director Paul W.S. Anderson returned to the Capcom well to make Monster Hunter, based on the video game series about killing monsters and turning them into fancy pairs of trousers. I've been told there's more to it than that, but frankly I'm not convinced. While the Resi movies aren't what you'd call cinematic masterpieces, they turned Capcom's horror franchise into a standalone series of stories that accumulated its own cult following. The movies changed the plot, but walked their own reasonably successful path instead.
Who's the Red Queen?
State-of-the-art artificial intelligence.
The corporation's keeping a few secrets down here.
Anderson's reimagining of Monster Hunter, on the other hand, was a confusing mess, and while the locations in the most recent game, Monster Hunter World, were colourful, diverse biomes, the movie was set in a world that was mostly as barren and empty as the movie theatres screening it when it came out in 2020. What's more, instead of a flamboyant pseudo-medieval fantasy style, the monster hunters of the title were all conventional US Army Rangers in typical dull, camouflaged fatigues who had been teleported there from non-specificistan.
Where the hell are we?
Not a pair of colourful animal hide trousers to be seen. What is even the point?
They're brothers. They're plumbers.
Oh no. Mario! Luigi!
They're on the trail of a kidnapped princess and a mystical meteorite.
It's incredible!
For our money, it's an absolute crime that now when people talk about the Super Mario Bros. Movie, they're talking about the wildly successful animated Chris Pratt one, and not the deeply weird dystopian sci-fi 1993 one. Super Mario Bros. The movie is a far cry from the cuddly, family-friendly Nintendo we know these days. Instead, with the filmmakers handed the loaded gun known as total creative freedom, Mario and Luigi were thrust into an alternate version of Manhattan that looked like they'd snuck onto the set of Blade Runner while Ridley Scott wasn't looking. While there were several references to the original games, for the most part this was the product of a completely unique and not very good sci-fi script about evolutionary origins, a magical meteorite, and intelligent fungus, none of which appeared in the video game series. And no, Toad doesn't count as an intelligent fungus. Look at him, he's clearly extremely stupid. From that script, all that was left was for a bunch of respected actors, including Bob Hoskins and Dennis Hopper, to attempt to make sense of the damn thing and escape with their careers intact. Which is more than can be said for the directors Annabelle Jankel and Rocky Morton, who after this stinker never made a Hollywood movie again. It also took Nintendo 30 years before they were prepared to license another Mario movie. Even Chernobyl was safe to visit after 25 years.
Shao Kahn, Emperor of Outworld.
Surprisingly, the first Mortal Kombat movie is generally considered to be quite good. Not good, but you know what I mean. Not so the sequel, Mortal Kombat Annihilation, which was a straight-up disaster. Apparently, the budget for the movie was slashed after filming had already begun, and the result is a cheap, made-for-TV feeling shadow of the first film.
This is the beginning of the end!
Not helping matters, Christopher Lambert, who played Raiden in the first film and was probably its most well-known star, declined to return for the second one, even though Annihilation picked up immediately after the final scene of the first movie. So they just hired a different actor and pretended it hadn't happened.
Raiden? It's a new look.
It's not a new look, it's a new face, mate. Combine that with some absolutely rotten CGI graphics, and you've got a video game movie sequel that absolutely squandered any goodwill generated by the unexpectedly decent first movie.
Prepare!
The first Mortal Kombat might not have been good, but Mortal Kombat Annihilation was definitely bad.
2007, Los Angeles. The city has changed. Cops rule the day. Punks rule the night.
Based on the 1987 arcade game of the same name, Double Dragon had plenty of space to play when it came to storyline. After all, the original game had so little narrative, there isn't even a plot section on its Wikipedia page. It's for that very reason that in the movie we got a load of nonsense about a 2,000-year-old amulet, a dystopian near-future Los Angeles, and the T-1000 with a bleached blonde flat top.
T2's Robert Patrick.
It's less, have you seen this boy? And more, have you seen this boy? The almost complete lack of a storyline in the game beyond woman gets kidnapped clearly had an effect on the quality of the dialogue in the movie too. Most of the times the Lee brothers open their mouths, it's just to scream. At least the movie is just self-aware enough to realise how crappy the boys look after their final transformation.
We don't really have to wear these, do we?
Savage burn on the costume department there.
In life, there is beauty, and there is terror. One must not overwhelm the other.
There's you thinking we'd pick the other Street Fighter movie for this list. You know, the one with the inexplicably Belgian Colonel William Guile.
And who wants to go with me?
But although, yes, the original Street Fighter the movie is not a good film, it still holds together, mainly thanks to Raul Julia's glorious scenery-chewing turn as General Bison. Game over for any actor trying to top that performance. Get your coat, De Niro. No, the Street Fighter movie we've picked is The Legend of Chun-Li, starring Smallville's Kristen Kreuk as the literal and figurative First Lady of the Street Fighter series. The original Street Fighter movie might have been silly and overblown, but Legend of Chun-Li course-corrected too far the other way and tried to become a gritty martial arts thriller. Unfortunately, it was just dull. A few half-decent fight sequences weren't enough to rescue its simplistic plot. And worst of all, it starred an M. Bison who looked like Fraser Crane's stunt double.
You will not stop me.
Not my Bison.
I'm going to kick Bison's ass.
I don't think so.
There's my guy.
Where do you hide? When they're everywhere. What do you do? When there's no way out. How do you kill what's already dead?
The old arcade shooting game series House of the Dead wasn't short of a strong theme. Set in a gothic European mansion and with a Victorian adjacent aesthetic, this zombie shooter featured two smartly dressed agents infiltrating the secret lab of Dr. Curian. So the game had a distinctive style that you could imagine translating neatly to a movie. Then legendarily dreadful German film director Uwe Boll came along. Uwe Boll is a man who was literally making movies to exploit a tax loophole that has, mercifully, since been closed. Instead of the creepy trad horror setting, Boll decided that the movie version of House of the Dead should take place at an island rave happening near a house rather than inside a gothic mansion.
We're on the island where the party of the year is supposed to be happening, but it's completely deserted.
With Uwe Boll's record, consider yourself lucky that there's a house at all in this movie. The result is a film that's dreadful even by schlocky zombie movie standards, and some ropey dollar store bullet time effects don't do much to elevate things. Rubbish dialogue and boneheaded behaviour from the heroes combines with a general sense that watching this god-awful movie is actively causing irreparable damage to your brain.
Is that you, Matt?
Hey, maybe if I watch it a few more times, I'll forget I ever watched it in the first place.
From international spies to elite assassins, the world's greatest warriors,
Welcome to DOA.
have been brought together.
Fights can happen any place against anyone.
While you've almost certainly heard of the Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat movies, it turns out just about every 90s fighting game franchise got a movie at some point or other. There was a Tekken film for which some poor hairstylist was tasked with maintaining a straight face as they recreated Heihachi's hairdo.
Let's see what the street has taught you.
And there was a King of Fighters movie which involved people teleporting to some sort of dimension of perpetual fighting. I'd love to be able to say it made sense at the time, but it didn't make sense at the time. Even the most unserious fighting game series got its shot. Dead or Alive as a series was famous not for the quality of the fighting, but instead for being the game that popularised jiggle physics. No other fighting game series has a sexy beach volleyball spin-off, is all I'm saying. Rather predictably, the movie was just an excuse for a lot of bikini fight scenes, and while some of the fight choreography was half decent, the storyline was about as coherent as someone who recently took a roundhouse kick to the face.
We need to work together. Why don't we just split them up evenly?
Handily, DOA also stands for Dead on Arrival, which is exactly what this film was upon release in 2006.
I learned the truth a long time ago. Being afraid of the dark is what keeps most of us alive.
The very title, Alone in the Dark, implies a creepy, isolated horror experience. Needless to say, this video's winner of Least Improved Director, Uwe Boll, failed to get the memo. Boll's take on Alone in the Dark was an over-the-top, Matrix-inspired action flick set to a soundtrack of machine gun fire, explosions, and thunderous butt rock. They're not alone, and it's not even that dark once the machine guns and explosions start going off. The movie starred Christian Slater, Stephen Dorff, and Tara Reid, with Tara Reid's performance in particular considered legendarily bad in this particular movie. That's probably why you only get a single off-camera line from her in the trailer.
Every culture's got a story about the end of the world, doesn't it?
But not every story starts to become true.
Well, we wouldn't want to discourage people from coming to see this steaming heap, would we? Alone in the Dark commits arguably the worst crime a bad movie can commit, that of not even being so bad that it's good. It's just a tedious, unimaginative slog through a bunch of off-the-shelf CGI monsters and truly nonsensical lore.
Some gateways should never be opened.
I'll tell you a gateway that shouldn't be opened, the door to whatever cinema screen is showing this garbage.
A regular Joe is about to uncover two sinister plots.
Today we do God's work.
We will strike a blow against America.
Uwe Boll's worst crime against the art of filmmaking has to be the movie version of the video game Postal, which in itself was already a crime against the art of game making. The Postal series of games, in particular Postal 2, is a clumsy attempt to create the most offensive video game of all time, featuring Osama bin Laden, cat silencers, and gallons of urine.
Now the flowers will grow.
Actually, excessive urine can raise nitrogen levels in the soil to toxic levels and kill the flowers. Also, no one wants their flower beds to smell of piss. Uwe Boll saw the Postal license as an opportunity to finally make a movie that was intentionally funny. Unfortunately, having set out to make a satirical comedy, as with all his previous efforts, he utterly pissed the flower bed.
I have to destroy a postal truck filled with lethal microbes before a doomsday cult or a terrorist group destroys the entire world.
Yeah, like I believe that.
The result was a car crash of epic proportions. A desperately unfunny, unfocused load of nonsense trying so very hard to be edgy and missing the target harder than someone attempting to use a cat as a silencer. The irony, though, is that Postal the movie is probably the most faithful video game adaptation of all time, because the game is a load of old shit as well.
Would you look at that? A ladder! Unfortunately, my design doesn't facilitate this type of...
Well, destiny awaits.
Last and also least in this litany of cinematic crimes against video games is the new worst video game movie ever made. It's number one with a bullet, or should that be 87 bazillion bullets? Friends, it's Borderlands.
You ready to kick some ass?
Okay, let's go.
Hey.
It'll be no surprise to anyone who caught our Borderlands reaction video over on Outside Extra, but boy oh boy, was this a letdown. I believe we have a clip.
Well.
This f***ing movie sucked.
Alright!
And I stand by what I said. Eli Roth's attempt at adapting looter-shooter Borderlands into a blockbuster movie took a shaky aim at doing an ensemble sci-fi comedy romp along the lines of Guardians of the Galaxy, then missed so badly the best joke they could pull for the trailer was the one where everyone gets covered in urine.
Roll the window up!
It's Pete. It's Pete. Why do you think it's called Piss Wash? How did I get the name?
It's in my mouth!
There's nothing strong enough to wash that taste away. Much like this movie. Aside from Cate Blanchett's high-end Lilith cosplay, this movie looks cheap. It also sounds bad, makes minimal sense, and is full of people delivering lines as if they were jokes, when they actually aren't.
Step aside, bitches!
How is Jack Black as Claptrap not funny? That shouldn't be possible. But they found a way, by God, and we suffered the consequences.
I'm expelling the excess lead. I can't go if you're looking at me. Actually, scrap that. I can. I really can. Actually, it's helping.
Are we really ready for this to finish?
Keep looking at me!
If you think about it, we should be thanking the disaster piece that is Borderlands for reminding those of us who believe that rubbish video game movies were a thing of the distant past that eternal vigilance is the price of freedom. As an aside, this would be a really bad time to announce Borderlands 4, huh?
It's the game of the movie.
Borderlands.
Okay, wait, I want to hear the crowd.
There you go.
Lights
Right.
Thank you so much for watching our top 10 bad video game movies, ranked from worst to ultra worst. We've got a couple of videos for you up here. One of them is a list from us here on Outside Xbox. And down here, we have the full, unfiltered rant about Borderlands the movie over on Outside Extra. So if you've enjoyed this about bad video game movies, that's the weapons-free version right there. So enjoy that.